Welcome to day 3 of Accenture Data and AI Week, and thank you for joining us. And let's get started. I hope you've been as inspired as I have by these incredible insights and discussions that we've had so far. Today, we're diving into one of the most critical and exciting topics in the world of artificial intelligence. That's driving artificial intelligence, AI at scale, from learning to real world impact. I'm Govind Rajathiraj, a financial journalist and the editor of The Core, a business news and insights publication. Over the past few days, we've seen how generative AI is already transforming industries and making a big impact. It's clear that AI is not just a future possibility, it's a present reality. But the real challenge lies in taking these initial successes and scaling them across organizations. Before we dive into today's sessions, I have a quick scheduling update. The panel discussion Driving AI at Scale from Learning to Real World Impact, which was originally planned for today, has been rescheduled to tomorrow. That's Thursday, the 8th of May, and we will share the exact time and details with you shortly. So please stay tuned. We appreciate your understanding, and we're looking forward to an even more engaging session tomorrow. To kick things off, we begin with a candid conversation on how data and AI, the power duo, is shaping the world of work. And joining me to do that are Mukesh Chaudhary, lead for data and AI for Advanced Technology Centers in India and Advanced Technology Centers Network. Mukesh oversees the global delivery of data initiatives for Accenture's Advanced Technology Centers, playing a vital role in scaling the company's data and AI businesses. We're also joined by Kaushik Sanyal, Managing Director for Data and AI Business for Strategy and Consulting Global Network at Accenture. In his role, Kaushik is responsible for scaling AI operations across communications, media, that's the world I belong to, and technology industry group. He is also the software platform global industry lead, working with Fortune 500 clients, and has worked for more than 25 years in this space. Mukesh and Kaushik, thank you first of all for joining me today on this, what promises to be an interesting and important discussion, the future of work. So I'm going to ask both of you to speak for a couple of minutes on this theme as you see from your vantage point, post which we will jump into some questions. Mukesh, why don't you go first?
Sure, Govind. First of all, welcome to everybody who is listening in to this. So I know you talked about the real world impact, Govind, right? And I wanted to go with an example which could be very, very familiar with a lot of people, because everybody nowadays does online shopping. So I'll pick an example from Amazon. There's a buy for me agent that Amazon has come up with. I think it's in beta in the US. And it's such a great example of Gen AI, Agentic AI. If you look at it, most people should be able to relate to this. Just think, if the products are not available on Amazon, how convenient it would be if you were still able to order the good and from within Amazon, right? And that's really what this feature does. And it shows you all the offers from third-party websites. You are actually looking at very familiar product pages, what you're used to on Amazon. The same checkout process that you go through on Amazon, it's absolutely everything is the same. And once you are able to do that, you're able to buy, and then you can also track order from Amazon. So just think of it, right? That the power of agents and what it can do, and it also takes care of the privacy. Because the question that came to me is that, what if Amazon is able to see everything that I have been ordering from this third-party website, but it cannot? Okay, so that's a feature. It's built in to just keep your privacy. So just think of it, the potential of this and what it can do for different industries. This is just one example that I wanted to kind of bring up.
Right, Kaushik.
Thank you, Govind. Thank you, Mukesh. What I wanted to talk about, when Mukesh talked a little bit about the B2C story, about how consumers are getting impacted by stories like this, I wanted to bring a little bit of stories from a business to business perspective. When we started this journey about 24, 28 months back, about this LLM coming in, ChatGPT coming in, and so on and so forth, I think a lot of the focus in the initial months was more around the back-end processes around, let's say, technology development, contact center, and so on and so forth. It is now pivoted over the last 6-8 months more towards the business processes. So if you take, let's say, an insurance industry, where you have the claims processing or the underwriting happening, at that point, a lot of the work which is manual and repetitive right now is getting done by the agents. So a lot of the efficiency and productivity improvements are happening because of that. Secondly, let's say you take, let's say, a retail industry, a lot of the merchandising that happens around that, again, agents are coming in and taking up the repetitive work. Or let's say if in a process like order to cash, if you take a look at that whole process, many of the work that we do today, which is manual and repetitive, the agents are taking in and significantly reducing the number of hours or days it would have taken to do the job to minutes. And that productivity improvement is what businesses are loving. And that's why today, what has happened is AI has become a conversation in boardrooms and driving us in terms of the growth that we are seeing in terms of its adoption globally.
Right, and let me pick that a little further with you, Kaushik. So the example that you quoted, using agents and the processes that are clearly being now streamlined and accelerated within corporations, are there like any such technology injection? Are there early adopters and low-hanging fruit, or how are you seeing the rollout?
So what I'm seeing a lot about in the rollout is primarily operational processes. So if you think about processes which are fairly repetitive in nature, that's where companies are going out for. So let's take it a point of view in the underwriting process. A lot of the data used to come in, somebody had to manually file the data, look at through all the things, put some additional external research to kind of augment the information that is already there, then go about and put some scores to it, and then finally let out the score for it in terms of whether they want to go ahead and underwrite that product or not. Now, a lot of that research, collation of that information is being done together very quickly. Companies are starting to use that thing and saying, okay, let's bring all this thing in together. Let's put the agents to put that information together. So what an underwriting process, which was taking about 5 to 7 days earlier, is now being done in 1 to 2 days. Because a lot of the manual work in terms of collation of information, researching, doing certain analysis, putting the things together, sending the emails out, all of that is being done by the agents today.
And do you see some industries, I mean, you talked about underwriting, but do you see some industries adopting faster than the others?
I think most of the industries have started taking this thing and the back end of their processes, but some of the more industries, more mature industries in terms of data, where they have a good, strong data in their environment, they are looking to kind of look at their day-to-day processes. So you look at a retail industry, you look at a financial services industry, they are probably one of the first ones to go out there and start adopting these techniques.
Right. And, many of these companies, and Mukesh, I'm coming to you, they deal with large sets of data. I mean, if you take a bank, for example, or a large retail chain. So how are companies, marrying this too? The data that they have already, which of course is being, let's say, parsed and, people are putting machine language maybe in the past or some other form of data mining, to the point that they can start using AI to do some of the things that you've just mentioned.
Absolutely, Govind. Today when we talk to our clients, data readiness seems to be one of the biggest challenges that enterprises have in terms of how do they scale generative AI. And I'll talk about 2 surveys. And just if you combine those 2 surveys and what it says, you basically, you get the point. So first survey we did was in July 2024. And the C-level execs pretty much came back and said, 97% of them saying that generative AI is a technology which is absolutely game-changing, and it's a technology that absolutely deserves the long-term investment. And 65% of them also said that the investment in having an end-to-end data foundation is going to be key to it. Now, there's another survey that we did where 36% of enterprises said that they are actually now working on scaling generative AI, but only 13% of them were actually getting value out of generative AI, the significant value out of generative AI. And one of the biggest points as to why they were not able, they were not getting the significant value was actually their data readiness. So as part of the July 2024 report that we published, we have actually been advocating 6 key, there are multiple aspects of that data strategy, but there are a few key aspects of that modern data strategy that we have been advocating. And first, of course, is that, of course, everybody has been on this journey with structured data, but tap the potential of unstructured data. Because if you look at even according to IDC, that's a survey that they did, 95% of data that is generated by enterprises is actually unstructured. And the potential of Gen AI lies in actually be able to contextualize all the structured data with this unstructured data, right? Which has, which something has not been dealt with in the past because of the lack of technology, but today we have that. The second is, how do you then simplify your data landscape? That's the second point. Then the third being that, how do you deliver this data? Because the trust in data has to be there with businesses. So how do you basically deliver this, trustworthy data by deploying data as a product concept, right? And that brings the aspects of how do you then govern your data, how do you basically manage this data and make sure that the data is of high quality, and that brings in different operating models along with it, which is like hub and spoke model, for example, that we talk about, which is how do you make sure that businesses are are the owners of data, who are making sure that they have a stake in ensuring the quality of data, right? Whereas there is a central team which is actually making sure that they are coming up with the common standards, the common design, the common principles, all of that, right? And then the whole semantic layer that we talk about, which is becoming so important to make sure that agents are able, because agents are, when agents are actually going to act, they are actually looking at the semantic layer, which is giving them the context to that data. And then, and that's where the magic happens, that, you have all the context to your data sitting in the semantic layer. Agent is interacting with the semantic layer and is able to then go and bring the relevant data to agents to take action. And very interesting, though, is that we talk about all of these for generative AI, but the generative AI itself actually can accelerate a lot of these data strategy and implementation that we are talking about. So it's what we call the data and AI circularity in terms of data for Gen AI and Gen AI for data.
Right. So you talked about how 95% of data is unstructured. So I have a question. I mean, when we talk about, let's say, context like India, are most enterprises at that stage, or is this a stage before that, which is more to do with even the collection or the mining of the core or the base data, and then we reach a point where it's unstructured, and then you start applying AI to it?
That's a great question. While we talk about a lot of these, I think there are some, of course, even if you look at the data, the structured data itself, I think there is a challenge. So for a very long time, enterprises have looked at data as analytical data and operational data. But if you look at in terms of how you want to, the best insight that you're going to get out of your data is when you interconnect this operational data and analytical data, right? So there's a lot of data that's sitting in, take for example, a bank. There are a lot of data that's sitting in their core banking, which you need to have access to and be able to generate insight from, and then marry that with all the analytical data that you have to be able to actually go back and serve your customers, right? So absolutely, that's definitely the first challenge. And then what happens is that, take an example, right? I'll give you a very, simple example of a customer review. When we go online, we order things, we go to Google, we give reviews. Okay. And there is a rating that I give, which is like, it says either it's 3 or 4 or 5, right? And then, of course, Govind is a different person than Mukesh. Govind is, unless something is a perfect experience, Govind will say, oh, it's not 5, right? I may be more lenient and say, it's all right, it's 5, okay? So that's one part of it. But then the second part of it is that you go and read the comments that Govind has given or Mukesh has given, and if you bring them both together, you actually have the right insight, actionable insight that then you can use to do something with it.
Right. Mukesh, so you used an example of, making a purchase, putting giving a rating to that product or service on Google, and all of that becomes data which companies can use if they are able to use it effectively. So tell us about, how these things are coming together right now as we speak, or how could companies be moving towards maybe data points which are all out there, but they've not been able to, mine or capitalize on effectively.
Yeah. So there are already good examples, Govind, in every industry we can pick where clients are already making use of it, right? We have a customer who is in the quick service restaurant business. They have been actually building this data strategy that I was talking about. How does a modern data strategy looks like? That is something that company has already been building, which is helping them now actually get onto a lot of these AI use cases that I was talking about. There is another example from one of the insurers who actually has looked at their whole underwriting process very differently now, right? And it's more about a senior underwriter is actually interacting with agents rather than the junior underwriters, right? It's already happening. So we have that example. There is another company where it's in consumer goods where we have been actually looking at their whole source to pay process, and we have reimagined the whole source to pay process with, of course, the data foundation that I talked about. And then we have been able to reimagine the whole business process, and the efficiency that we are getting out of that process itself is significant. So it's already happening. There are examples in each of the industries. What's going to happen from here is that, as I was talking about, just think of it, 36% of companies are saying that they are actually looking at scaling Gen AI. They realize that data readiness is one of the big items that they need to crack, and they are already that effort is already on. So we are actually going to see the impact of generative AI actually exponentially go up from here on. And we have already seen that in last 1 year, how from just being in the proof of concepts to pilots to now, companies are able to scale use cases and put it in production and make it in real use. Yeah.
So can I add just one example over here?
Go ahead.
Just one thing that Mukesh was talking about. We all have been in businesses where we have been seeing BI reports getting created for last 10, 15, 20 years. Plethora, small, medium, big size companies, plethora of BI reports are getting created. What we have done in Accenture is being able to put this AI capability on your BI reporting, and which allows you to start having dialogue directly with the data. So now what is going to happen is, with the AI capability sitting over there, it is going to look at all the reports. It's going to translate that into words and going to tell us, what, your sales in this region has come down by this percentage point. And if you continue to do this way, you're going to not meet your sales targets for the year. Or these are the SKUs that you are falling short on sending it to certain stores in certain markets of the country. Even if you don't improve your supply chain process effectively to make those SKUs go there, you will be falling short, or this kind of an area will be something that your competitor will be taking away. This is the way that the conversation will be changing to. What is to happen? Previously, people used to look at that report, they used to look at the drop in sales, send somebody over there, hey, why is the sales down? Somebody used to run in there, get the data, do the analysis and come back. This will now change to a more direct automatic process. And that is where the changes will be happening, where the people will now be thinking about what does my line manager want? What does a sales manager want? What does my VP want? They will be thinking along that and designing the contour of what they will be getting so that personalized inputs can be sent to those people in terms of what is happening for the business than just creating push button reports that are standard reports that is going out there. So moving from the minutia to a more mature way of dealing with the business. That's the whole change of what AI is making us do.
Right, Mukesh. Yeah, go ahead.
And maybe just to is a conversation that I was having with a client just this morning. Okay, and the conversation was about, okay, so I looked at this platform, and it has its own set of agents, and I think that I know I should be able to use that agent effectively. And the conversation thereon was that, do I really need, to go out of that platform to make the use of, and that's where the conversation started to say that, okay, you know what? It's not about just the productivity. It's about looking at your business process end to end. And and that's where the discussion was about, okay, you know what? You have a platform, let's say a Salesforce or a SAP or any of that, right? You will have agents within each of them, which is able to do certain things. But it's about the interconnectedness of data. How do you bring the data across your enterprise together is where the power of what agents can do lies. Because just think of it, a customer service person who is responding to a customer on the phone has to have access to specifications from product R&D department, right? Just think of, you are going to run a marketing campaign. If you have the insights from your supply chain, you could actually, understand in terms of, how do you go about running this campaign, right? So that insight from supply chain can help you. And these are all, right, in the past, this data has been in silos in organizations, and you have not been able to bring all of these together to give insight to your customers. But now you have the ability to do so by bringing all of these together and the modern data thinking that we just talked about, right? So I just wanted to give you that example because this is as recent as this morning we were having this conversation with the client. Yep.
So let me ask you, Mukesh, it's like a two-step question, or maybe it'll go into three steps. So the first is, you talked about, just to go back to that Google example of, putting a rating and then writing a comment. That's two sets of data points. Now, we are looking at a situation all this, even as you start building the
culture and, the ways of working, bringing some of that as well, data. So bringing some of that, and that's really where, the effort say, okay, you know what, this is the roadmap that we are on. What is the value data becomes really, is that's where synthetic data important. It's not just important from filling that data gap that exists. So first of all, take, in levels with that data. You don't want that data or environment. So some of that, to how do you make sure that you are de-identifying? So industry, you may have to think about synthetic data. You have to think about, in many contexts, in many industries, you may have to think about biases, right? Just think of, journalism industry that you are in, like, let's say you were working on something, there is a model that you have so much of information. You have to look at your, how representative is this data, right? And are there biases? Are there things that I need to be taking care of that, right? So those are some of the data gaps that exist.
Right.
And there are situations where there is not enough data. There's not enough data to train models. So we need to build, that too. Yeah.
Come to, as we run out of time, one question to both of you. So I'll start with you, Mukesh. So where do you encounter Gen AI in your life, and how do you either make good use of it, or how does it help you?
Okay. So just to be clear, right? I'm not making any action figures of me yet. But I am but I am definitely using it as a productivity tool, not just at work, but also at home. And by the way, if you really look at the apps that are there now on your phone, many of them are already using Gen AI, right? And many, it's slowly going to be place where we are using Gen AI without even noticing that we are using Gen AI, right? So that's where we are. So I definitely use it as a productivity tool. It does wonderful things in terms of summarizing. And sometimes when I'm just between so many things and I just haven't gotten time for a meeting, and I'm like, okay, I just need some ideas. I just go get something to get started, right? So there are things that you can do, but from Copilot perspective, I'm seeing a lot of good productivity coming in terms of how it summarizes, how it is able to just do some of that, and then you don't do any meeting notes anymore, right? All our calls that we do now is all about Copilot generating that and sending out the mails, and we're good. Yeah.
Right. Thanks for that. Kaushik, where are you encountering AI, and also your last word?
So I started first, a year back, we were going for a trip to Japan, and I said, let me plan my trip in Japan using the Gen AI, and came out not exactly thrilled with the output at that point. I used some of it, but then I kind of curated along, human in the loop, as you would say. But I think what Mukesh said was true. I think a lot of it today is all about, in the business that we are in, we have to go out there, meet with companies, meet with clients. A lot of the quick information gathering, the research, getting curated research done with regards to the client that you're meeting, with regards to the customer that you're meeting, can be done through this Gen AI. That's helping us a lot in terms of the productivity improvement. Mukesh talked about the meeting note. That's a godsend thing. That's something that we are using it most effectively. Kind of using that to kind of go out there, translate the information, put that thing together. So primarily on productivity tools, I have not as yet started using it for my PowerPoint presentations. The day I use it, I don't know what I'll do with the rest of my time.
Yeah, and I heard of something called Gamma, which is supposed to be quite good at doing some of that. But the travel is something that I will surely pick up on. Mukesh and Kaushik, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Govind.
Thank you, Mukesh and Kaushik, for joining me on this interesting discussion, and also something that gives you a sense of what the transformation power of AI is. But it's split into two parts. There is first data, which is very, very important. Companies have a lot of data around the place, but putting it together, trying to understand it, understanding what is the difference between unstructured data and structured data, using technology or AI for that matter to convert that unstructured data into useful data is the first step. Building the information architecture to do that. Remember, this is a different world. We're talking about a situation where, let's say, a consumer-facing company has new data points to reckon with. For example, a rating on Google or a comment somewhere, combined with all the real-world physical data on, let's say, store sales, if you were a retail company that already existed. So putting all of this together, and then comes the second part, which is to say, is my company fundamentally ready to do this? Are we in the C-suite totally committed to it? If so, why are we doing it? Are we doing it because we are scared? That's not a bad reason. Are we doing it because there's competitive pressure? Not a bad reason also. Or is it something else? But the net result is this has to result in outcomes that are important and critical for organizations and their success. So that's where data and AI come together, and the combination of which obviously creates more contemporary, more organizations which are more ready for the challenges of tomorrow. And that brings day 3 of Accenture Data and AI Week to a close. From powerful case studies to the people and systems behind AI at scale, today offered a deeper lens into what it takes to operationalize artificial intelligence across industries. Do not miss day 4, where we shift gears to focus on skills, what to learn, how to adapt, and how to thrive in this ever-changing AI power world. See you at 3 p.m. sharp.